That's a very good question. I like that. You've answered the question.
He doesn't scream. He doesn't demand. Spielberg just watches, then chooses. And once he makes that choice, it doesn't change.
I think the toughest thing for a director to do is to know what he wants. It's not how to get what you want, it's knowing what you want.
For 5 decades, Spielberg has shaped the emotional language of cinema, building worlds, rewriting history, and directing more icons than any filmmaker alive. But behind all that, there's something else. His ability to find the one actor who fits, the one voice he trusts, the one performance that changes everything. He doesn't work with noise, he works with resonance. His films live across generations, but at the center of each is a performance that anchors the chaos. Spielberg doesn't just cast talent, he casts gravity.
That's what I'm good at, not the work. The presentation.
And when someone gives him that, when the trust is full, the work disappears. What's left is something close to myth.
I would never go there, I'm too good for that. I mean, I love making movies that are so different from, other movies I've made.
He's worked with hundreds, but only a few entered the frame and never left his orbit. The ones who gave him everything and got back something even rarer. Here are the 6 actors Spielberg holds highest, above headlines, above hype, and why no one else has ever replaced them. Number 1. Tom Hanks. Some directors find actors. Spielberg found a twin. Tom Hanks wasn't just cast, he became part of Spielberg's cinematic DNA. From Saving Private Ryan to Catch Me If You Can, The Terminal, Bridge of Spies, and The Post, their bond is one of the most consistent in modern Hollywood. And it's not built on friendship, it's built on trust. Hanks once said, "When Stephen calls, I don't ask what it is, I just say yes." That's not showbiz flattery, it's a rule. For over 25 years, Spielberg has trusted Hanks with his most emotional material: war, history, moral ambiguity, human fragility. And Hanks always delivers without noise, without ego. On the set of Saving Private Ryan, Spielberg reportedly gave minimal direction, just a nod or a whisper. He knew Hanks would find the truth in the moment. When Hanks took on the role of Ben Bradley in The Post, Spielberg said, "It was like watching a journalistic lion step into the newsroom." And yet there's no fanfare between them, no public declarations, just the quiet repetition of trust. Their chemistry isn't flashy, it's foundational. Hanks doesn't steal scenes, he grounds them. He gives Spielberg the emotional oxygen his stories need. Other actors might bring fire or chaos. Hanks brings gravity. There's a reason Spielberg keeps circling back. He knows exactly what he's getting, and what he's protecting. Hanks never tried to impress Spielberg. He just showed up, every time, fully prepared, ego buried. That's the secret: consistency, empathy, control. Hanks gives Spielberg the invisible things that keep the frame steady. And Spielberg? He gives him legacy. This isn't collaboration anymore, it's creative fusion. And it started the first time they met, and never ended. Number 2. Daniel Day-Lewis. When Spielberg cast Daniel Day-Lewis as Abraham Lincoln, he knew it wasn't just casting, it was invocation. Day-Lewis didn't audition, he didn't rehearse in the traditional sense, he transformed. By the time he arrived on set, Lincoln was already standing in front of Spielberg.
As the preacher said, I could write shorter sermons, but once I start, I get too lazy to stop.
Spielberg later said, "He gave me the gift of time travel. There were moments I forgot we were making a movie." The performance was meticulous, quiet, precise. No explosive speeches, no theatrical grandstanding, just tension, empathy, and breath. It was the role of a lifetime, and Spielberg treated it that way. He kept his distance while filming, no first names, no casual banter. He addressed Day-Lewis as Mr. President on and off set, not as a stunt, but because that's what the work required. Day-Lewis, famously selective, had turned down Spielberg before. In fact, it took Spielberg years to convince him to say yes. But when he did, the result was singular. Lincoln became one of Spielberg's most respected films. Day-Lewis won the Oscar, and yet Spielberg didn't brag. In interviews, he simply said, "I didn't direct him, I just witnessed him." There's reverence there, but also fear. Spielberg doesn't typically surrender control, but with Day-Lewis, he stepped back. Because some performances don't need direction, they need space. Day-Lewis never returned to Spielberg's orbit after Lincoln, not because of conflict, but because lightning doesn't strike twice in the same storm. Spielberg has worked with dozens of great actors, but only once did he work with someone who made time bend. The collaboration wasn't long, but it was deep, and it changed how Spielberg saw character, pacing, and silence. One role, one film, one presidency. That's all it took for Daniel Day-Lewis to earn a permanent place in Spielberg's top tier. Number 3, Harrison Ford. There are actors. And then there's Indiana Jones. But to Spielberg, Harrison Ford wasn't just a character. He was a cinematic compass, a collaborator who knew when to take the wheel and when to trust the director.
Prepare to meet Kali in hell. Oh! Put out a wing!
Their partnership began with a hat, a whip, and a smirk. But what followed was decades of quiet, deliberate loyalty. Spielberg once said, "Harrison brings confidence into a room, and when the camera rolls, that confidence becomes myth." Ford was already Han Solo, but Spielberg saw something else, something harder, rugged but grounded, larger than life but still human. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, Ford became the blueprint for the modern action hero. He bled, he groaned, he got back up. The shoots were brutal, the pace relentless. But Ford never flinched. On the set of Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, Spielberg recalled a moment where Ford insisted on doing a stunt himself. No doubles. Just trust. He told me, "If I get hurt, you'll know it was worth it." That's who Harrison is. What makes Ford stand out isn't just longevity, it's his silence. He doesn't campaign for roles, he doesn't play politics. He shows up, does the work, and leaves the noise behind. Spielberg has said Ford gives him authenticity on demand. Whether it's humor, pathos, or pure physicality, the man delivers, over and over, without flinching. They've worked together on 4 Indiana Jones films, and Spielberg has said if he ever directs another adventure movie, there's still only one guy he'd want in the lead. It's not about versatility, it's about presence. Harrison Ford doesn't try to steal the frame, he is the frame. And for Spielberg, that kind of reliability becomes legacy. Number 4, Leonardo DiCaprio. When Spielberg met Leonardo DiCaprio, he didn't see a heartthrob. He saw a scalpel, sharp, surgical, controlled. The first time they worked together was Catch Me If You Can. DiCaprio was just coming off Titanic. The world saw him as a boyish megastar. Spielberg saw something else: restraint, timing, stillness under pressure.
I didn't expect the Secret Service on this.
Don't worry about it.
In interviews, Spielberg said, "He's got a clock inside him. He never misses a beat. He's not guessing. He's landing." What made that role click wasn't the charm, it was the desperation underneath it. DiCaprio's Frank Abagnale wasn't just a con man, he was a broken kid in a flawless suit. Spielberg leaned into that, and DiCaprio delivered. The performance redefined him. No longer just a leading man, now a real actor. And Spielberg was the one who made that turn feel earned. Their chemistry was quiet, professional, no on-set drama, no second-guessing, just clean, instinctive collaboration. Spielberg later said he was blown away by Leo's process, how he read scenes like maps, how he asked questions no one else thought to ask, and how, even as the youngest guy on set, he never let the weight of the production rattle him. There were rumors of future projects, a Howard Hughes film, a courtroom drama, but the timing never aligned. Still, DiCaprio remained one of the few young actors Spielberg never stopped praising. He called Leo's performance in The Revenant devastating, said he wanted to work with him again, soon. Leo is one of the few actors who can carry chaos in his eyes and silence in his voice. That's why Spielberg still talks about him like unfinished business. One perfect film, infinite potential. They may only have one title together, but the impact runs deeper than the credits. Because when DiCaprio entered Spielberg's orbit, he proved that even legends can be surprised. Number 5. Meryl Streep. Steven Spielberg waited nearly 4 decades to direct Meryl Streep. When he finally did, it wasn't just a casting choice, it was a tribute. She joined the post in 2017, late in the game, after the project moved fast to match a political moment. Streep, already a 3-time Oscar winner, stepped into the role of Katharine Graham like she'd been preparing for it her entire life.
And this is no longer my father's company. It's no longer my husband's company. It's my company.
Spielberg had always admired her from a distance, but once he saw her on set, it changed. He said, "Directing Meryl is like conducting a symphony with only one instrument." She didn't overact, she undercut. Every glance was timed, every breath served a purpose. Streep didn't dominate the room, she dissolved into it. And Spielberg gave her the silence to lead, not with speeches, but stillness. It was the first time he admitted he felt nervous directing an actor. Streep herself said Spielberg barely needed to direct her. His writing and shot structure carried the emotional weight. But behind the camera, Spielberg called her performance a masterclass in restraint. The Post earned Streep another Oscar nomination, her 21st. But the bigger story was how Spielberg talked about her afterward. He didn't just say she was great, he called her essential. Not to the film, to cinema. He compared her presence to Daniel Day-Lewis, surgical, internal, and deeply human. He said, "There are very few actors who don't need the room. Meryl is the room." Despite working together only once, Spielberg has often said he'd drop anything to collaborate with her again. Their connection wasn't built on repetition. It was built on one perfect moment, done right, on time. And that's all it took. One film, one presence. And the most respected director in Hollywood walked away saying he'd never forget her eyes. For Spielberg, that's more than praise. That's permanence. Number 6. Robin Williams. Robin Williams didn't just play Peter Pan. He made Steven Spielberg believe in him again. When they worked together on Hook, Spielberg was going through one of the most emotionally difficult shoots of his life. The production was bloated, behind schedule, and emotionally exhausting. Spielberg, who thrives on control, found himself overwhelmed. And Robin? He noticed. According to Spielberg, Williams would call him every night after shooting, not to talk film, but to make him laugh. He'd get on the phone and do 15 minutes of improv just to lift my mood. No ego, no exhaustion, just presence. Williams became the emotional center, not just of the movie, but of the man behind it. Spielberg later said the film didn't turn out the way he hoped. It was too big, too loose, too messy. But what stayed with him wasn't the box office, it was Robin. Williams gave the role of Peter Pan an adult sadness, the ache of forgotten youth, the weight of time. He turned a fairy tale into something personal. Spielberg saw it, and he never forgot. Their friendship continued long after Hook. Spielberg even delayed shooting Schindler's List during moments of grief after Robin's death. He said, "Robin was the lightning in the bottle, and when he left, the room just dimmed." Williams was never directed by Spielberg again, but he didn't need to be. Once was enough, because some performances echo. Some personalities leave a shape in the air, and Spielberg, with all his structure and control, allowed Robin to be the one wild element in his frame. That's rare, and that's why when Spielberg talks about actors who changed him, he always circles back to Robin, not because he was the most polished, but because he was the most alive. Spielberg never talks about favorites. He talks about moments, fleeting, fragile, unforgettable. Sometimes it's one film, sometimes it's a lifetime. But in every case, these actors gave him something deeper than performance. They gave him reflection. In their silence, he found tension. In their breath, he found rhythm. They made his stories human, flawed, complex, aching. He doesn't cast for noise, he casts for gravity. And the ones who gave it to him, he never lets go. Their names may not be carved into his credits forever, but they're written into the way he tells stories, scene by scene, frame by frame. Who's your favorite on the list? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching and subscribe to the channel for more studio insights.